Yo, what's going on? Welcome back, and today we got the first episode of Huddy's podcast, so let's get right into it. I haven't really been talking about the NFL, making any videos about the NFL at all, so I thought I would take this podcast episode to talk and discuss about some NFL topics. The topics we're going to be going over today is the best quarterbacks by each category in the NFL, and who will be the starter for these NFL teams in Week 1. But starting off with the best quarterbacks by category, the categories we have are the best quarterback, the most underrated, the most overrated, the fastest, the most clutch, the best leader, the most improved this upcoming season, and the best rookie going into this 2021 to 2022 season. But we start off with the best quarterback, and my pick here is Patrick Mahomes. A lot of people can argue that it is Aaron Rodgers, but I'm going to be going with Patrick Mahomes here. Like I said, a lot of people can argue that it's Rodgers just because he's coming off of an MVP type season, and a lot of people are going to say that a lot of people are also going to say that Mahomes is better because Aaron Rodgers lost in the NFC Championship, but people can also say that Mahomes lost in the Super Bowl, so they're basically equal. And I mean, with the type of plays that Mahomes make are just insane. Has to be the best playmaker a lot of people have seen in a while. And we saw how his offensive linemen were basically all hurt during the Super Bowl, and he was kind of suffering that injury during the Super Bowl as well with that toe. And I think that was the main factor. If he had all healthy linemen plus healthy himself, I think that the Chiefs definitely could have won the Super Bowl. But the Buccaneers, of course, were a really good team, really good defense and offense, and they were able to take the W there. But I think that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have a lot to prove this upcoming season. With trading for Orlando Brown Jr. should be able to improve Mahomes, and he also got surgery on his toe. He's going to be better. His offensive line is going to be better, and I think that this Chiefs team has a lot to prove, and they could easily make it to the Super Bowl. Moving on to the most underrated quarterback in the NFL, my pick might be kind of surprising, but it is actually Derek Carr. Now, a lot of people think that he's just an average quarterback, not overrated or underrated, because he can't lead his team to the playoffs, but they were close this past season. They were 8-8, and he threw 27 touchdowns, 9 interceptions on almost 70% completion rate, over 4,000 yards, and I think that he's definitely an underrated quarterback in the NFL. I think that this Raiders team can definitely make the playoffs this upcoming season, but with the AFC being more competitive, with the Dolphins joining the conversation and the Chargers, if you want to put out there, I think that I don't know if the Raiders can even finish top 2 in their division. Like I said, with the Chargers, with the talent of Justin Herbert and their team, I don't really know if they're going to be able to be talent for the playoffs. He's got 3 Pro Bowls in his career, and I really think that he is starting to be in his prime. He's getting up there in age, 30 years old, so I don't really know if he's going to be performing like this for much longer, but I think that Derek Carr right now is probably the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. Now moving on to overrated quarterback, I know a lot of people can agree with this. It came down to kind of 3 guys to me between Dak Prescott, Baker Mayfield, and Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray could be surprised, but in my opinion, I think Kyler Murray has been kind of overrated this past season just because he is one of the best receivers in the NFL. And, I mean, like we saw this past season, Kyler Murray, I mean, I will say that it was a really, really good Hail Mary throw versus this good Bills defense. But Kyler Murray really did nothing but throw a prayer up for that DeAndre Hopkins catch in triple coverage. And I think that he's been getting overrated by these NFL fans, like I said, because you have DeAndre Hopkins on your team, you can make any single type of throw look really easy. Sorry if it did cause any confusion, but I just threw Baker Mayfield in that conversation, not because I think he's overrated, but just because everybody else thinks he's overrated. I personally really don't. He led his team to I'm not sure what it's called, for the second round of the NFL playoffs, and I think that this Browns team has a lot of talent. They definitely, I think that a bit of a hint for the record predictions. I do have the Browns winning the AFC North because I think that they do have more talent than the Ravens. It may not be at quarterback, it may not be at tight end, but I think overall this team is better defensively and offensively. I mean, you could probably argue offensively, but just because the lack of receiver talent on the Ravens end, unless Rashad Bateman turns to a stud, but I really do think that this Brown team has enough talent. Now they might, I mean, we'll have to see how they do with Odell Beckham back on the field, because seeing how far they got without him was really surprising, and looking at the records, it looks like they're kind of better without him, but we will have to see now with him being fully healthy, whether this team is actually better with or without him, because we could see a possible trade next season if the Browns are somehow better without him. And last but not least, Dak Prescott. Don't want to throw any shame to him, of course, coming back from that horrific injury. I think that he could definitely prove everybody wrong this season, just because I think a lot of people think he's not going to be as good because, like I said, that injury that he suffered last season. But I really do think that he can definitely... I don't know why a lot of people don't think that the Cowboys are going to win the NFC East, but I'm one of those people that think I believe in the Cowboys winning the NFC East. If Dak Prescott can come back at least 75% healthy, I think Zeke should be at least way better than he was last season, at least, because we saw when Prescott got out, the whole entire team went out. I mean, Andy Dalton couldn't do it by himself, obviously. Zeke couldn't do anything without Prescott, and I mean, the whole entire team just collapsed. Like, you couldn't. I mean, the Cowboys team could not do anything, so they finished. Was it last? Maybe no. I think third behind the Giants and the Washington football team, because the Cowboys were 10th as they traded down with the Eagles at 12 and took Micah Parsons, which will improve this defense, but it's still decently bad. But they do have one of the best, I would probably say the best receiving core in the NFL with Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and of course I'm forgetting somebody, CeeDee Lamb too. But yeah, I personally think that Prescott and Kyler Murray kind of overrated, but I don't really understand why Baker Mayfield is considered overrated, because I really don't think he is. Moving on to most to prove this upcoming season. This is probably my favorite category here, just because I think that there's like a lot to talk about. But my most to prove, I had two guys who I think are really like, I couldn't really pick one. They both not deserve, but they both need to be on this list, being Carson Wentz, who got traded to the Colts this past season, and Tua Tagovailoa. I know that Tua is only in his second year, but there's been a lot of people calling him a bust. Oh, he's overrated. He's a bust. Whatever. Of course, I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm surprised I'm not even wearing merch. But, I mean, I think that Tua is going to be able to take the next step. We saw he threw 5 interceptions in the first day of minicamp. So what? I mean, if I know it, nobody really knows, right? You just see on Twitter he threw 5 interceptions, except nobody really sees the background story. Of course, I'm not currently in Miami, but I'll get the Miami news. There is flash flood warnings in all of Doral, which is where they practice. Flash flood warnings in all of Miami-Dade, everywhere in South Florida. And it was windy as heck. It's just pouring. And in the second day practice, they had to take it indoors because it was just too much. There was puddles everywhere, and everybody, you couldn't even, like, your cleats would get soaked, like inside it was just insane, and nobody really talks about how there was a freaking hurricane outside. So Tua stepped up insanely today, though, in the second day, because I'm recording on June 17th on a Thursday. So this was the second day practice. He threw no interceptions and 7 touchdowns today at minicamp, so he definitely has stepped up. But of course, minicamp means nothing to the NFL season. I think that he will be able to take the next step. We signed guys like Will Fuller, and of course drafted Jalen Waddle with the 6th pick, who should add weapons to Tua. And I'm kind of surprised that we didn't take Sewell, but I am happy with Jalen Waddle. They do have that connection from Bama. But I'm kind of worried about the O-line. If they can take a step, I would love that to protect, of course, our second-year quarterback in Tua. But there's people calling him a bust, that he could possibly be traded for Watson or for just Watson. But, of course, those rumors have kind of settled down. But, I mean, I think that Tua is definitely going to be able to take this next step. And also Carson Wentz is the other one. Of course, he was traded to the Colts this past season, and he's been battling injuries his whole entire career, unfortunately. Of course, had that torn ACL with the Eagles, which kept him out for the whole entire Super Bowl run, and I'm pretty sure part of the year after too. But he was traded to the Colts after the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round, and they started him for the last couple games of last season. And they decided to make him the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles, which left Carson Wentz being able to be traded to a quarterback needed caliber team. Philip Rivers retired. The Colts immediately needed a quarterback with Jacoby Brissett leaving in free agency, and Carson Wentz was there in sight. And I'm really high on Carson Wentz. I mean, he's reuniting with Frank Reich, who I know I said this in recent videos, in the Carson Wentz videos. He's reuniting with Frank Reich, who was the offensive coordinator in Philly during his MVP-type season in 2017 before he tore his ACL or Achilles, whatever it was. I have high hopes for him. You have weapons. Like, I think that Philly could possibly even trade Zach Ertz to Indianapolis. I would not count that out for reunion with Wentz and Ertz. They also have Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, and those are just tight ends. T.Y. Hilton, Philip Dorsett, Zach Pascal. I think that those are all solid weapons. And you also have the running back in Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor. But Carson Wentz really has some weapons, and of course some of the top offensive line in this whole entire NFL league, of course led by Quentin Nelson, who you could definitely argue is the best guard in I think unarguably the best guard in the NFL. But yeah, I definitely have high hopes for Tua and Carson Wentz. But hey, they could definitely not take the step that everybody expects them to, but I have high hopes for both of them. Next up, I don't really know why I even put this one in. It's speed or who's fastest, whatever you want to say. It's obviously Lamar Jackson. We'll have the highlights in the background. He's just an absolute beast when it comes to athleticism and running the ball. Now, I know that we all saw the running back memes, oh, whatever. He's a running back, not a quarterback. But I will say, he's an underrated passer. He's been improving his passing skills ever since he got into the NFL. And I will admit that he is now becoming an underrated passer. But even so, he probably is still the best runner or scrambler in the NFL. Now moving on to the best leader in the NFL, I'm probably gonna have to go with Tom Brady for this one. I mean, we just saw him completely turn around this Buccaneers team. Now they did make some other signings like Antonio Brown, Gronkowski. I think they might have signed James White too. They've just made so many signings just because they signed Tom Brady, and he's been able to recruit everybody to this Tampa team. But either way, those were kind of small addition players. I mean, Gronk turned out to be better than I thought he would be. So, I mean, Antonio Brown was a good pickup. But I don't think that they really were the ones who turned this team around. If Tom Brady was not added to this team, they would not even have made the playoffs. And that's a hot take, but Tom Brady, I think, can just turn this team into a non-playoff team to a Super Bowl team. I mean, we just saw he just led this team to the Super Bowl after not even making the playoffs the year before. And I think that he is, you could argue it, but I think that he definitely is the best leader in the NFL. Last but not least, we have the best rookie in this, and going into next year, I think it's kind of obvious. I have Trevor Lawrence. I mean, some people could probably somehow argue Zach Wilson. There's no other rookie quarterback that's confirmed to start. I mean, of course, nobody else is going to start over Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. I mean, possibly Trey Lance. We know that Justin Fields. I'm going to talk about the Niners and Bears and who's starting for these NFL teams in Week 1 in a couple seconds. But I think I'm going with Trevor Lawrence. I think it's only up to him and Zach Wilson, but you got to go with the number 1 overall pick here. So Trevor Lawrence is probably the best quarterback rookie going into this season. Now moving on to our second and last topic of the podcast, we have who's going to be the starter for this NFL team going into the opening week. And we have a couple of teams here. I have the Packers, Texans, Bears, Broncos, Niners, Saints, and Washington football team, as those are the top teams that I really wasn't sure who's going to be the starter, so let's get right into it. Starting off with the Packers, to me, it's obviously up to Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love. Obviously, it's depending on whether Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded. We haven't really seen Jordan Love. We haven't seen Jordan Love play in the NFL at all, actually, unless it was in the preseason. But I think that the reigning MVP is going to stay despite all the trade rumors. I know a lot of people think that Aaron Rodgers could get traded. I really don't think it's going to happen. We saw all these rumors. I'm not sure if he, officially wanted out of Green Bay and, requested a trade. But I really don't think he did, and I don't think that he will. So I think that Aaron Rodgers will be the starting quarterback for Green Bay in Week 1. Moving on to the Texans, I think it's another case of what the Packers had between Deshaun Watson and Tyrod Taylor. In the end, I don't think it's going to be like this Packers case, and I think that Watson is either going to end up being traded for a late pick in the draft or possibly released. I think in the end, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter, whether Watson sits out, is traded, or is released. I think that if he does get traded, like I said, it'll be for a late pick, just like a dump off, like the Panthers did to Teddy Bridgewater, or the Jets did to Sam Darnold. For the Bears, this is a more interesting one. We have Justin Fields, Nick Foles, and Andy Dalton as a starter. Mainly Dalton and Fields because we all saw how the Bears traded up for Justin Fields. I think it was definitely one of the best moves in the draft. Then in the second round, they trade up to get Christian Darsaw. Or was it? No, sorry, it wasn't Darsaw. It was Tevin Jenkins who was still on the board in the second round. So a good draft from the Chicago. But Matt Nagy said in a recent report that there would be no scenario that Justin Fields starts Week 1. Of course, like I said, they traded up to get him. But I think it's going to be a case of how most rookies are. They're not going to really start Week 1. I think that they can probably start Dalton for maybe a couple weeks into the season. Then they put Fields in. Or, if I'm being honest, it could be a case where they start Dalton and Foles throughout the whole season, then maybe put Fields in the second season. And now to the Broncos. This is between 4 quarterbacks, believe it or not. Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock, Aaron Rodgers, and Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson's football career could literally be over. Who knows? And Aaron Rodgers, I just put out there because he's been rumored. I mean, there was a report that they said that Aaron Rodgers does want to be traded to the Broncos. That would be kind of nice seeing him versus Mahomes twice a year. But in the end, I really don't think that Watson or Rodgers will be traded in general. I think Watson could be released, and Rodgers just won't be traded at all. In the end, I think it's going to be down to Bridgewater or Lock. And I think that Bridgewater should be Drew Lock in camp. I mean, if he doesn't, that's kind of a shame. But in the end, I think that Teddy Bridgewater will be the starter in week 1. Moving on to the 49ers, we have 2 guys here between Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. I personally kind of thought that Jimmy Garoppolo would be traded, but now I kind of think it was smart that they didn't trade him. Of course, they drafted Trey Lance, but it looks like Jimmy Garoppolo could be coming to his last couple games this season. I think that they're probably going to start Jimmy Garoppolo for the first couple seasons to mid-season, then maybe start Trey Lance during the second half. But I think it's a possibility also that Shanahan starts Jimmy Garoppolo for the whole entire season and then starts Trey Lance in his sophomore season. Coming down to the last 2, the Saints and Washington football team, I think it's 2 just kind of obvious ones. The Saints with Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, I don't know why some people think that Taysom Hill is actually going to start week 1. Wilson should be able to be the starter in week 1. I personally think that he will be. In 2019, the last time he was a starter, of course with the Buccaneers, he threw 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. It was the first 30-30 season ever. But I think that, of course, Jameis Winston got that eye surgery. He should be able to see better, and who knows? I think that he could actually be a pretty good quarterback. Now, but the question is whether Kamara and Michael Thomas will step up. We saw Kamara when Breeze was out last season, or 2 seasons ago, or also last season, that he kind of struggled without Breeze, so it's going to be his first real season without Drew Brees the whole entire time. So, can Kamara step up without his usual start quarterback, or will he not be able to step up? Now, coming down to the last team, we have Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heinicke. I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, but in the end, I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick's starting playing days could be over, and I think that the Washington football team might have signed him just to kind of mentor Taylor Heinicke, who is 28. Not to sort of mentor him as a young rookie, but I don't really know if they're going to be starting like a late 30-something-year-old quarterback. He could be 40 by now, honestly. I have no clue. But it could be surprising prediction here. I think that Taylor Heinicke will be the starter in week 1 for the Washington football team. That will end up wrapping up the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of Huddy's podcast. Make sure you stay tuned for episode number 2. If we're feeling really good, we could upload another podcast on Wednesday, and if not, just expect weekly ones on Saturdays. Either way, hope you guys enjoy the podcast. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Peace.